Abum ana esibo so Edudzi Tamakloe ni Kofi Bentil no TV3 my busy nti say ma hu say fireworks see on na nyasem ketwa abum kese pa ho. And it's interesting how two lawyers can be presented with the same set of rulings, same set of facts, and they have vastly different interpretations of the matter. It's quite interesting. I have a little bit to say on these issues. I'm so much also the comment section about after all, you're also a Ghanaian. You don't necessarily need to be a lawyer to understand some of the things that they are saying. And you know, at the amount. Make sure also subscribe. Subscribe. I'm not click the notification with the video. Be able to who knows what you have a comment. Feel free. Leave that comment in the comment section. Make sure also go Goldberry Construction Limited. Oda an episode in Wasasan Krata, some the documentations related to your house and Goldberry, ABDC, Jumani at the amount. We are measure so backhomeraccess.com, website or backhomeaccess.com. Then on way, say be a woo sit down, Ghana, what's your butcher, unyum feedback for the man, don't say them believe say do lento, say do be say about Boston idea, back home be this age manama. Oma maybe a report be a periodically, be a hako to and man on can your probably follow up on the ama back home. Only basically an errand boy for you. Upo you have best man who are rich, they so need maybe my Ghana or by amount. Obako school Ghana, hapo we bako channel, akrana academics na ko saying e bia feedback akrana de man nyo po we be kuti ni wan kasa nti cheni na bon komo so to provision kra koma akrana bako assist ombe di sage man nyina ma omo number de guso no frɛ na again no betimi nso akọ website na ka bawumia.com ombe ye bibia ma kamaka omo ye we rambo to de suma from na come website or kwa ne pe wo ho no wa wo be hu and mesho se wo be ni nyina e dia mam. Let's go into the matter. You said Sedina Tamakloe peace court issue. No, there are a lot of interpretations, and for me come dey yan me dia mam na no say ni ku TV3 nya sem ketwa Kofi Bentil na kasa kane tibia
trying to figure out whether they struck out all the charges and whether in their view all of the charges were so flawed as to not be upheld.
No, the defective.
And I think that's... They said, from my reading, it wasn't everything. They dealt with a few, and then it seemed they seem to have said that these charges, so many of them are defective, and then they proceed to clear the rest. I'm a bit worried about that. Even one charge is enough to put somebody in jail. And you see, we lawyers always say, justice must be done, it must be seen to be done. If justice is done, it is seen. All right? And the same happens with injustice. And let me explain. So, before Sedina came to Ghana, there were people who predicted that in Chi we say, Yakohu Abrewa, there's Ken, there's Sedina. The pressure for bringing Sedina back or effecting her extradition rose very high because they were going after Ken. And it was clear to many people that, well, to get Ken, they would have to bring Sedina. So people conjecture that they will bring Sedina. Because you don't do that, you can't get Ken. But if they bring Sedina, she will be sick when she comes. I'm saying these are conjectures that people make. And so she will not see a day in jail. You remember there was the whole issue of where is she? All right. And then they predicted that, Sedina will do an appeal. And then they predicted that there will be, a stay pending the appeal. And that the appeal is going to go Sedina's way. I think some of you heard some of these things. And that she will appeal and they will exonerate her and she will never see a day in jail. It is worrying. Because I have said already that sometimes it seems as if the politicians have dreams and they make wishes and then the judiciary delivers it. Okay, one event is not a trend. So you don't create a trend of one event. But no wise person ignores a trend. It started with Justice Tokono. Statements were made before they even came into power. They come into power, something happens. Justice Tokono is gone. You had other situations, GN Bank. Okay, promises were made outside the courtroom. Okay, then somehow the judiciary delivers the dreams of the politicians.
Well, the Bank of Ghana is appealing that now.
Well, as we stand right now, see the trend? No wise person ignores a trend. Some politicians make statements to a certain effect somehow, and then they go on appeal. Same thing happened with Sedina. Okay, people express something before the fact, and then it happens, and then they go on appeal. All right, and you see the series of nolli prosequis. Okay, there is a clear trend that the smart thing to do is, if you get in trouble, find a way to escape and wait for your political party to come into power, and they will clear you. We've seen the nolli prosequis. Nobody can deny there is a trend. Okay, we are being too hypocritical in Ghana, and I'm not saying people should be railroaded into jail when it's not due or whatever it is. But there's a man who liked chichinga kebab, but one day he saw them slaughtering a cow, and he said, no, they shouldn't slaughter the cow. And they asked him, if you don't slaughter a cow, how will you get your chichinga? Look at Galamsey. We've been crying over decades over Galamsey that no kingpin has been caught or whatever it is. Then the government starts going after people, and one or two people get trapped in the thing, and then you hear all kinds of things. Look at this corruption thing we have been crying about. Okay, and honestly, if there is any benefit of doubt regarding judges, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, but we lawyers also know that you can argue any side of anything and rationalize anything. Okay, so when you put it all together, it doesn't look like we are serious about fighting this corruption thing, because nobody can convince me, after the work Manasseh did, after the evidence we saw. You go and buy something which on the street is 2 cedis. On the street is 2 cedis. And you alone, when you go and buy it, it comes up to be 4 cedis. And so many different things. The facts were clear. All right. And if even you had issues with some of these, the work of the prosecutor, like Richard is saying, we are not there to judge the work of the prosecutor, although they are important. I have said, okay, and I said it based on the Kenneth Oyata case and other things, that we need to look hard at the way our prosecutors proceed, because they mess up cases.
That the question is whether or not the state put up a good case. This 78 charges, was it more of a fishing expedition? Was it
I'm making a general point, and that's why
that's the issue that you're pointing to.
So I don't think anybody doubts that what went on in Masloc was untoward. And by the way, let me make this call: abolish Masloc. Abolish Masloc. When they started, I remember some of these things that Imani says. They say we don't like anything, and then they will talk about ideology. I think it started during the MPP time. MPP set it up or something. And we said, look, you have all these banks and financial institutions and everything. Today they said they are going to start a women's bank. Okay. And the warning was that be careful about some of these things, because they can easily become slush funds. Masloc has become a slush fund. Look at the track. Okay. And invariably, more often than not, you hear about they giving loans to political operatives, and they don't recover those loans, and then we end up having problems. So there's another trend there. But the thing is, where there is a crime, or there is, the suggestion that there's been a crime, as was obvious in this case, our prosecutors must be careful. Because my point in the case of Kenneth Oyata was that the way they have gone about it, even if the man was guilty, you are going to let him loose. So please, it's coming up here again. All right. However, if you look at section 406 of Act 30, okay, it clearly brings to question what the justices of the appeal court did. Okay. And 406 generally talks about substance and not form. That you don't just throw out everything because there were errors in certain things, and it doesn't go to the substance. And in one of the statements, I kind of gleaned that the justices were making the suggestion that it goes to the substance, and I was looking for where it goes to the substance, and I didn't see it. So for you to say they did a sloppy job, and the job was so sloppy that the crime didn't happen, okay, I think that if you flip the other side, yes, they have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, but for you to also take it up and throw everything away, you have to prove, at least to reasonable people, that everything that was done was wrong. Look, one charge alone is enough to put a person in jail. Okay, so to suggest, and by the way, she has been acquitted and discharged. Okay,
which means that any other charge is completely
okay.
Out.
Now, if you put all of, I said, don't ignore a trend. If you put the sweepiness of the action, everything gone. If you put some of the things that were done, it looks like somebody wanted to just free Sedina. And then you connect it to the things that were said before she came. You ask yourself, where are we going with this corruption thing? What signal does this thing send? So for me, look, let's see how the appeal will go. But I can tell you something here. I don't think that appeal is going to go anywhere.
You don't think the appeal will go anywhere?
I don't think so.
The Attorney General is convinced. He says that, look, he sees merit in some of the charges, and the reason why he's going to court, and on the grounds of appeal. Listen to the language of that notice of appeal and the stay of execution. And this is what the Attorney General says. I'm going to read it, at least so I don't take the matters out of. This is it. When he filed, it says that this occasioned a miscarriage of justice. This is the Attorney General speaking. Among other reasons, material errors of law and fact are apparent on the face of the record. It raises substantial and arguable grounds of law which disclose a real likelihood of success.
I've heard all of that. Okay, well, listen.
You still don't believe this?
A carpenter goes to work. His tools are hammers and chisels and things. A lawyer's tools are gowns, dressing, and language. Those are lawyer's tools. Now, and a lawyer can argue anything. So he can say all these things. We will look at the effect, and clearly it seems every government comes and clears their people. And this government in 2 years, check how many people they have cleared. Check the value, okay, of the charges against them and what could have been recovered, even if we recovered half. We have cases where they say they are going to recover 60% or so. We haven't seen, what has happened with it. Look, my brother Martin is here. Oral, they were jumping back and forth, up and down. How does this play? Like I said, you like teaching, but I don't want to kill the cow. Okay, we cannot say we are fighting corruption when clearly there looks like, it seems like there's a trend where the government is clearing its people, and then they go on appeal, and we don't know what the appeal is going to do. All right, you can argue any side of any issue if you're a good lawyer. So for me, a lawyer's tools are his dressing and language. So composing the language to say, when Edudzi wears his coat and his gown and things, it makes him look like a demigod, and then he will use it. So when you hear some of these things, look at the action, look on the ground and see what the trend is. So for me, like I said, if there's any benefit of doubt, okay, I will give it to the judges, but it also does not look like they acted in such a way as to make everybody believe that this was clear, plain law at work. And it's sad how people are attacking Godfrey Dame. I have said that I think we should watch our prosecutors and get them to do a good job. But I think people are taking it a bit too far and personalizing this thing over the head of Godfrey Dame. All right? We need to do some of these balancing things and make sure that going forward, we will not come back and say the same things when the table is.
Is it not because he's the Attorney General?
Yes.
The buck stops with him. Is it
Of
not?
course, yes. But I'm saying some of the language is a bit too personal. All right? And as we speak, okay, and I keep going back to the Ken case because the example everybody remembers. No matter what you think he has done, the botching of the prosecution is why we don't have the situation. And like I said from the beginning, you could be Abrewa. Abrewa is in the US. The same Abrewa looked at Sedina Tamakloe's case and said, this one is bad.
basic.
Take it back. The same Abrewa looked at Ken Oforiate's case and acquitted or basically absolved him twice.
And that was on the immigration matter.
Which
Eh?
That was on the immigration.
judge.
I beg. I said,
A classmate of Oforiate.
you see this? You see? That's why I said we went to ask Abrewa, who is controlling the US courts? Okay, if this happened in Ghana, you can say whatever you want to say, but somebody who doesn't care about you, is not afraid of you, looked at the issue and said that this thing, it doesn't look like you are serious. And I'm making the point that I beg. The justices in the US, Oforiate is controlling the justices in the US. That's what you're saying.
Yes. We know Edudzi say, "Jania, wo ye no. Don't talk like erupted ahanyagba ono ye politician kasasa lawyer ni kasasa no kasa tebi.
I listened to my senior Martin Kpebu. I listened to the other two. And I have no doubt at all that this morning, my learned senior Kofi Bentil decided not to do law, but politics.
Why is that?
And the reason why he decided not to do law, but politics, is that with all his learning of the law, it would be extremely difficult for him to undermine this judgment. And so conveniently, he chose the path of politics instead of law. But our training is law. The politics is just an addition, regrettably. This morning, my learned senior pontificates very strange legal propositions. One is that an American court can have a say on criminal charges filed in a Ghanaian court yet to be determined. Where from this learning, Bentil?
You don't want me to answer?
No.
You don't want me to answer?
No.
Then no, that question is wrong.
Because
Wrong question.
the American court does not have supervisory jurisdiction over the Ghanaian court.
Nobody's saying that. When you ask them to extradite somebody, you brought me in. You ask them to extradite somebody. You effectively ask them to look at what you are doing, and they judge it. They said you don't look
Can I
serious.
proceed?
So don't be me. Now I have to respond.
As we speak, there is no decision on extradition in respect of Ken Oforiatta. Ken Oforiatta requested for permanent U.S. residency, among others, and he went before an immigration court. It is that immigration court that had given a decision. There's no question whether Ken can be extradited or not. So what are you talking about?
Nobody is saying that.
The request for extradition by the Republic is yet to be decided. So please don't mislead the public.
Right.
We owe it a duty.
He should make his point.
Right.
Look, you see, I have seen a wayward American judge who decided to engage in judicial waywardness by pronouncing on criminal charges filed in a Ghanaian court, yet to be decided. Today, as we speak, the United States of America is fighting even the International Criminal Court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even the International Criminal Court,
Yes, they are not-
Secretary of State Rubio, Marco Rubio, is saying that the judges there are lunatics. And you have a Ghanaian lawyer. Please, let us not sell our sovereignty for people.
When you extradited people
thank you.
without
Now-
proper
now-
process.
Now let me deal with the substantive matter. First of all, we are being told that when a charge sheet is defective, that defectiveness should be overlooked. Proceed. My Lord Justice Pega, in his validatory judgment of Sequoia II and the Republic, said the provision you read relates to Act 30. However, the 1992 Constitution has raised particularity relative to charge sheet to a constitutional pedestal. Article 19, 1D. And for that matter, where particulars are defective, you cannot use evidence to cure that defect. And so if you look, Sedi had two appeals. When prosecution called its 6 witnesses, the prosecution said they have closed their case. A submission of no case was done. One of the issues Sedi raised right from the beginning had to do with the defectiveness of the charge. The High Court judge said, proceed and answer the charges. That submission of no case was appealed against. And if you read the notice of appeal and the grounds in respect of the submission of no case, included the fact that, included the fact that one of it clearly had to do with the defective charge sheet. So it is in the notice of appeal.
The 2024 one?
Yes. And no, so the first appeal was August 2023. That was when she was called to open her defense. But then they raised that issue. Now, when the judgment was delivered in May 2024, if you look at the notice of appeal filed on the 9th of May 2024, in that notice is the omnibus ground. Which omnibus ground is the fact that the judgment is unreasonable, having regards to the evidence on record. All of us lawyers here seated know that once that omnibus grounds of appeal is raised, the entire proceeding is subject to review. And that is why we say appeal is by way of what? Rehearing. It means that everything that happened at the trial court, the appellate court is put in that position. Obviously, they do not have the benefit of assessing demeanors. Because the trial court is the only one that gets the opportunity to see witnesses and others. The appellate, they are just going to look at just the record without more. Okay. Now, I have heard the former Attorney General, the former persecutor, say that the notice of appeal was not brought to his attention.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Can you imagine? Clearly, it shows you that the guy was sleeping on the job.
Well, this is the part of the statement. He says, no notice of an appeal filed by Sedina Attionu in 2024 came to the attention of the office of the Attorney General in my tenure.
Please, hold on. I've read the statement.
And deal with the records too.
Please, I've read the statement.
The records were not also filed.
I'll deal with it. You see, Kofi, you are a lawyer. Don't do this.
Hey, master.
Senior,
bring me in. I'll
no,
myself.
yes, you will. But my point is that as lawyers, there's a bigger standard placed on us. With the greatest of respect to you, you can't speak like Anyaba. He's a politician. He is permitted to express any opinion, anyhow. Desirable. But you, a standard is placed on you. You cannot sacrifice that standard on the altar of political expediency. Why do I say so? On the 9th of May 2024, the notice of appeal was filed at the registry of the High Court. Whose permission or duty is it to serve that notice? Sedi? 2. The point had been made that pieces of the records were even missing. Look, I have with me the decision of the Court of Appeal differently constituted because the Attorney General brought an application before the Court of Appeal for rectification of the record. Is that not the procedure that the rules permit when you have issues about the records is to apply for rectification? The Attorney General applied to the Court of Appeal presided over by Justices Georgina Dacha, Amedahe, and another one, who reviewed, in fact, said these lawyers opposed the application on the grounds that the very document they claimed were missing are documents that the prosecution itself disclosed to them. And so for that matter, you cannot be saying that your own document is missing from the record. Said these lawyers oppose it. The Court of Appeal looked at the two sides and came to the conclusion that regardless of the fact, your claim that the prosecution has it already, our decision is that the records ought to be done again and those documents submitted to the Attorney General. Are you aware of that? And so what have you decided to do? Banding misleading information to cheer up your supporters who have lost an election. Sedina is not the reason why you lost your election, a devastating election. Sedina is not the reason. Now there are substantive matters. First of all, the counts were 78. The defective counts were even less than 10. The rest of the charges were evaluated on their merit. You did a shoddy work, poor work. Godfrey supervised the poor work.
That's why he doesn't.
And you know why?
With you.
And you know why? He never took his work serious.
What do you mean by that?
Yes. And I'll tell you. And you see, sometimes when I listen to Godfrey, I say, look.
I beg, the man is not here. Stop.
So,
But
the statement he issued, what do you think he was doing? This is an innocent person that he seeks to attack and destroy.
Who is the innocent person he's attacking?
Oh.
The man is AG doing his work. If he's here, he will defend himself.
Kofi,
but I am complaining.
Yeah, how they
so
let him finish.
No.
Let me make my point. Let me make my point. I've listened to him.
So are you referencing the statement he made?
The statement he made. I'm not permitted. Who issued the statement?
No, you deal with the statement.
No, Kofi, who issued the statement? What is this trying? Imagine if it's found that there was no notice of appeal. Do you know what Godfrey would have succeeded in doing? Is to undermine even the judges. Why would you have entertained an appeal when there is no notice of appeal?
Are you referencing this particular document?
See the date, 9th. Where is it? The registry of the High Court. 9th May 2024. Signed, High Court Accra. This is fictitious.
Yes. Benjamin. For a comment session, bra. It was just now a very, very busy day. Me relaxing. There was a lot of people on the video of Valco video, no, and one I'm sure comment, you know. A lot of them were asking about this book. So, be some more title like Professor Bafo Ajimendia and the Troy, ono ye CEO of Kofor Foundation, former UN diplomat, you know. Yes, so I do a UN. The title of the book on here, General Echampo, The Life and Times of Ghanaian Head of State. My friend, but Anko, what I'm told, and they say there's a digital version. It's maybe Amazon. Obetima check it. Ghana, so I'm told from a friend say Legon bookshop, and so be a EPP. So bacho also be akwa obenya is the Life and Times of Ghanaian Head of State General Champo by Professor Jimambafo. I think it's a book that every young political, someone interested in our politics and its dimensions, must read, especially about Ghanaian enterprises, how a head of state helped Ghanaian businesses to thrive, and all those things. And it's a book I personally will recommend to you. It's if I get a feedback from him on where to get it specifically, I also update you in the previous video. Yes, my more feedback on the Katiche Free Family video. No, it's an explosive video, 1 hour, Tuesday, live. We go. And no be so question. Let me educate people a bit on this. Journalism is not about feelings, it's not about imperialism. When Anan Cancer word spoke, I posted it. When Wuntumi spoke, I posted it. Why is it that I shouldn't post a category? Because we won't post a category free from men's. That's not how we do media. When you do that, it's not journalism. That is not journalism. If you want the platform to speak, you give him the platform. Same way, if Nanan Kanza Bodu wants to speak, I'll give him the platform. That's what media is. It's the basic tenet of media. That's how they are. And politicians say, "Kasa, teacher for na must be kamasem." It's not done. It's not about feelings. It's about what the ethics of the job is. If you speak about somebody and the person wants the platform to also speak, you give them the platform. That's what journalism is about, and that's the basic tenet. In the Tuesday, the video will be live. Make sure we'll see Ediamame and the Kwasori. To see now subscribe mame. Now click the bell notification. Send them the video be a to especially Tuesday video. Now very, very explosive, a lot of angles. I don't want to obviously we're too appetite, but it's supposed to be done that way. So that's what the team advises me. The boss I had trick is na me nyade. Me the my comedy we nanya can me jam no mobile but subscribe mame now click the bell notification. Send me can you know show see Ediamame. Didn't ya me here. Oh my Ghana so here. Bye bye.